I really want to tell you thank you. I know a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. You still made time for us to, sit down and talk with you. We were really excited about the spaces, sitting down and having a meeting with you this semester.
Absolutely. Yeah, we didn't want to change any of the access points, and we also really do see a great benefit as you will be the conduit for our students to hear information.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of my runner team. They've really stepped up this last few weeks of putting out information in a timely manner and making sure everything's accurate. I mean, there's so many things going around that, the team has been great at sifting through all that information and finding out what's, getting down to what's really true and posting that on our website and our social media.
Well, thank you for your professionalism. I'm very proud of our students as well. I'm particularly proud of just their tenacity at this challenging time, and also their optimism that we'll just all get through this together, which we will. So I'm really, really proud of your team. So thank you for your professionalism, and very happy to give access to not only comments from me, but also from my vice presidents. We have been working around the clock. So I want to make sure that we've got folks on the communication line here in case there are details that are needed by the vice presidents.
Great, that's awesome. I know we had sent a few topics to you originally when we requested this meeting. Obviously, I think, with everything that's happened since we scheduled this, most of our topics have changed.
That's exactly what I assumed. And that's why I wanted to make sure I had folks on the line for the most up-to-date information. And I'm happy to cover any topics that you'd like to talk about in this next half hour.
So let me run down the list of what I have right now. Would be, any kind of emergency services for students. We have questions about that.
Okay. And just what does that mean, emergency services? Is that like financial aid or?
I mean, any kind of emergency services, financial aid.
Okay. All right.
Accommodations. I know. Recently there was emergency dorm rooms provided for homeless students.
Yes.
Those are the kind of services that we're looking at. Not so much financial. I mean, financial obviously as well, but in addition to, any kind of support that the CSUB is able to give in this time of emergency. I mean, this really is an emergency for all of us.
Yes. Okay. Happy to talk with you about that.
The availability of the health center is one of our topics. We have a couple of questions about that. And I think as we were preparing for this, we actually just got some emails that covered a little bit of that, but I haven't had a chance to look at them yet.
Okay.
And then there are some financial questions about, student fees, and, there was a mention of, looking into refunding some of the parking and dorm rooms and stuff like that. So we had some more questions about that.
Okay.
And then I think the one I think is essential departments. Which departments are really open and not open. We were looking at the list that you sent out yesterday, and there are some things that are missing off that list. I know you can compile a complete list in that short of a time frame.
Sure.
So we kind of want to ask some questions about some more of those.
Sure. Okay. Anything else to add to my list? And if not, I'm happy to start wherever you like. And just before we do, is Dr. Wallace on the line?
They're still trying to get them.
Okay. All right. Because Dr. Wallace in Student Affairs does oversee our emergency services and our health center. Because we're talking every single morning as an emergency preparedness team, I have some high-level comments about that. But what may happen if Dr. Wallace is not able to get on his Zoom call. He's telecommuting. So if for some reason the technology doesn't work, I will have you just follow up with him. You could probably get on a phone call with him. So you can let Dr. Wallace know that might be forthcoming if you need additional details. Okay, and we'll move forward so we will be productive with our time here with you. So let me again thank the runner for being such a good conduit for messaging and communication to our students here at CSUB, and I really appreciate this time with you. This is a time where we all are standing strong together. It's a challenging time, not just for our university, but for our community and for our country and for our world. But I'm very optimistic that we have been well prepared to move forward as quickly as possible to ensure that we are using best practices and measures that will really provide safety and proactive mitigation of this virus. And we're hopeful that you will follow us not only on our website, but we have daily communications that we're planning every day, because we do know that as thorough as we try to be, there will be updates. And in fact, I'm on the phone every day with our emergency preparedness team, and that includes our cabinet, but also our ASI president, who gives us great ideas and feedback every day, and our chief of police, as well as our communications public affairs officer for the university. So we meet every morning virtually, and then in the afternoons, just immediately following this interview, I meet virtually with the chancellor's office and with all of the other 23 presidents of the CSU. So this is a rapidly emerging situation, and there are changes. And so we do thank you for your patience in understanding that we're trying to be as thorough as we can be, but yet sometimes there are changes given the situation and the updates from the chancellor. Most of the things that we're following really are system-wide directives. And so moving forward, for example, with the postponement of graduation was something that I was hoping to delay as far as I could before making a decision about postponement, but that directive, just to sort of ease everyone's minds, was made by the CSU. It is postponed, not canceled. But right now, we don't have any action in place in terms of what that postponement may mean. We need to get a little farther into the situation, and we expect in the next month or so we'll be closer to a better understanding what those options might be for the postponed graduation. I'm happy to talk with you about emergency services for students. As you know, we have messaged to students that we are encouraging those students that live on campus that they go to their permanent residence with their families, but we do understand that that's not possible for all of our students. I have been out on the campus today to make sure there was orderly conduct with regard to students moving from the residence halls. It looks as if that has already occurred very, very smoothly. I will say, though, there are a number of students that are unable to go back to their permanent residence, be it they are foster youth students, or have another category which makes it unable for them to go anywhere else but the residence halls. So those students are in place. There are still residential advisors there supporting them, and we've done our best to make sure that we are giving them food options. So we are very proud of the fact that we had one of our largest food distributions yesterday. In a half hour, over 200 students were given food. The food pantry will remain also as an access point for students that are still on campus. And dining, even though it's grab and go, is still available to our students. There's still some details that the students have asked us to work out. Many of the students staying on campus would like to purchase more food in one sitting. So I know our Vice President of Business is on the line, but it looks like we'll be making some alterations, mostly based on our student feedback on what their needs are right now. Emergency housing, as I understand it, is still available to those students that are homeless. We were able to increase the number of days a student that found themselves in that situation could access residential housing here on campus with a basic needs grant that we received. And we'll have to get additional details from Vice President Thomas Wallace so that you can add that to your report.
Okay. So I kind of answered that question about the emergency services. Is campus food going to continue to stay open? I mean,
Yes.
Like you said, there's places that aren't open. I just received a report that Witch and Panda was going to be closing down, but
Yes.
Starbucks and Runner Cafe was going to stay open.
That's right. And don't forget, we do have essential personnel on campus, but we are on a real skeletal staff here at CSUB just to really follow the guidelines of the Center of Disease Control. And so we do need to remain open for food options throughout.
So speaking of this, CDC and the skeletal staff, how much can students rely on the health center right now? I just got an email about telemedicine, about, televisits with the doctors, or I know with counseling centers doing counseling appointments via teleconference or, Zoom. What other kind of services are still available? And I think a big question is, what should a student do if they start having, virus-like symptoms or flu-like symptoms? Should they go to the health center, or should they call? Should they, first of all, what kind of services are still available at the health center?
So there are still services available at the health center. There's staff answering the phones, and I think you have an email. It was copied to me from Erica Delmar, who is our point person on our emergency management incident team, but also directing us that students can call, as well as faculty and staff can call the health center to ask these specific questions. So what should anyone do if they are worried or concerned that they might be infected with the virus? They should immediately call the health center, and they will be given directives so that there's a protocol if in fact you do believe that you might be infected. But in addition, even more importantly, students are going to have just daily healthcare needs. So they may have pharmacy needs, and those are continuing. And the services are just delivered in a different way, including counseling. So we'll continue to, again, remain very sensitive to those services that students might need throughout this very stressful time.
Thank you. I think, Katrina, do you have anything else on student health services? Paige? No?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Can you guys hear me fine?
I can, Paige. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to ask if we know specifically what route of telemedicine will be used.
I don't know those details, but I know that we could have you be in touch with Erica Delmar in the health center, and she would be able to tell you that exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome.
So I know one of the emails that was sent out said that you were looking into refunding things like housing and parking. Students are currently, I think a lot of people are legitimately concerned about, financially being able to make it, especially with, we got the notice that student aids were not going to be, I'm not sure about student aids yet, but I haven't got all the details on that. But I mean, people are losing a form of income when they stop coming to school. A lot of students are. And then we paid a lot in student fees, like, for use of the SRC, for use of the, different facilities, non-essential facilities that are currently being shut down because of this.
Right. So we're very, very sensitive to the fact that our student workers are going to be put in a challenging position. We will be covering student workers that were here working in our stateside services for the university up until April 5th. So even though for instance, in my office, we have 3 undergraduate student assistants and 1 graduate intern. They're all not working this week, but their pay will be covered up through April 5th, and that's coming from a directive from the chancellor's office. And we'll continue to stay updated with them if there's any extension of that. So we've already entered in the hours that a student would have worked up to April 5th. So we're trying to mitigate that financial challenge. We need to look at the question about refunds in two different ways. The first, though, I do want to mention the housing, parking, and dining services. So Vice President Davis is working daily, and we'll soon probably have a protocol from the CSU. It will be a protocol that will be decided by the CSU on refunds for things like housing and parking. So those protocols are now being developed by the Chancellor's office, and it is certain that we'll be moving forward with the CSU protocol for those refunds. Now, on the side of the SRC, we are trying to give alternative services. So stand by. We're trying to put together some virtual experiences from the SRC, and we want you to stand by on those particular services. But those funds are not in the same category as parking and as housing. Those are fees that are along with tuition, and so we'll try to give alternative service so that students are getting all the services that they need, but there will not be, and this is coming from the CSU as of yesterday, there will not be refunds on things like the Student Recreation Center. So again, those are student fees, and if you want more clarification on those 2 buckets, you could speak with Vice President Davis and on those details.
Vice President Davis. So I understand student fees are separate, but I mean, with the suspension of many of the student fees, I always thought of student fees as being separate from tuition as far as that goes.
Yes, I'm here. So for clarity, the way that students are charged is you have mandatory fees and tuition. The mandatory fees typically come, like in the example of a student rec fee or student union fee. Those are fees that were decided by referendums by students. And I guess the best way to think about it is the students at CSUB, approved a referendum to expand the student union and to add an aquatic center. Well, those services obviously are not in place at this point in time, and students are paying in and fees are being paid because it's going to support the total infrastructure of the buildings and the operation, the aquatic center, and everything as it moves forward. So those fees are the same as tuition, meaning as long as the academic enterprise is moving forward, and as President Zelezny said, we look for alternative opportunities to deliver services, those become non-refundable because those are mandatory fees. On the other hand, housing, parking, dining, in essence, those are options by the students. Not all students are required to pay those fees. Students are clearly paying for those fees for some kind of service, the service to be able to park, service to be in housing. And so those fees, again, through the CSU directive across all campuses, those we will be working on some kind of refunding mechanism to acknowledge back to the students that they're not using parking for the entire semester.
Right. I think that's all about, that's about all we have for our student fees.
I believe, I apologize. I apologize. Our provost is receiving lots of calls today, and I'm really thankful for his steady leadership. But he's on the line for a vast majority of the operations here at CSUB, and he's answering the phones himself. So,
okay.
so thank you, Provost, for helping us out in such a professional but yet personal way. And again, I want to be clear, we're following CSU directives on this, and if there's any changes in these, we'll certainly let you know. But this is what we've been told as of now about the separation of the potential refunds and of student fees and tuition.
Okay. So actually, while the provost is here, I do have a question. I just came out of a Zoom classroom where a lot of the students were really stressed out about, what they need to be doing academically, what they need to do to fulfill their requirements, what is expected of them from individual professors. I know you can't speak for every individual professor out there, but I don't know. I'm assuming that, the individual professors are going to be inclined to give a little leeway during this transition, but is there any kind of directive from academically that students can look at and say, yes, that we have, so there is some understanding there as far as making this transition goes?
So, Provost, are you able to chime in?
Actually, you have to unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
there we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for being late. I was on the phone and I had to jump in a couple of minutes late. Absolutely. There was, we've sent out a few communications to the faculty indicating to provide as much lenience as they possibly can to students, especially when we were in a prior phase in which students, we still had face-to-face instruction. So I will certainly reiterate that leniency to the faculty, but I must say the vast majority, 99.9% of the faculty have expressed the desire to do this exceedingly well and to meet the students' needs, to be able to create an experience that both the faculty member and the student is proud of. But specifically to your question of just flexibility, I strongly believe that our faculty are being as flexible as possible.
That's great. That's great. What about classes like performing arts classes, or what kind of ideas are they having for classes like the music department or the theater department, where it's a very physical, visual experience to be in these classes? Do you know anything about what's going on over there?
Absolutely. I'm in contact with every dean. And so I'll expand on it a little bit and talk about our physical labs as well. And so when you're talking about what's occurring in the performing arts, some of the things that I've heard is, so for example, piano, when the student has a keyboard at home, they will record themselves either on YouTube or it's an old term, but MP3 file, and send that recording of them playing the piano to the faculty member. So I just salute the faculty member for flexibility and creativity there. And then when you move over to our labs in physical sciences, what we're finding is that even in disciplinary areas that use physical microscopes and other equipment in the university, they're able to find online tools that achieve the learning goals that they had set for those students. Fortunately, online instruction it has been around for several decades now. So there's lots of tools that are available for faculty to harness to make part of their classes and to be able to hit their learning objectives.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Has the performing arts ever thought about doing performing arts department, have they ever thought about doing some kind of maybe not live stream, but like an online performance that other students could enjoy?
That's a good point, because Aaron Wan, our ASI president, essentially alluded to that a little bit earlier. And I feel like I do believe that the dust is starting to settle. We've been working up to this for several weeks. And so when we get into next week and after the faculty members have gone through their training, I really want to get the division to think about embracing the virtualness of our university and providing activities, speeches, performances, colloquia in a virtual format that minimizes our face-to-face contact. And I think we're going to get there.
That's great. I know you're running out of time. If you have 1 second for one more question.
Absolutely.
I have plenty of time. You can hang on with me for however long, as you don't mind me answering the phone.
That's fine. You had a short list of essential departments that were going to stay open and a list of departments that were going to be closing yesterday. It didn't seem like a complete list, and I know that was it didn't seem like a very complete list, but I know things like tutoring need to be addressed. I think this is probably one of the emails that I got right before I jumped from one meeting to the next, and I saw some emails come through, but like tutoring, the Writing Resource Center. I mean, really basic functions that a lot of students rely on. Is there any way that you guys can comment on those, or any ways that we've thought about addressing those functions?
Oh, absolutely. So when you're talking about alternative delivery, you're talking about delivering the core university services so that there is no drop in service to our students, whether they're here or they're at Antelope Valley. And so the communications that I've sent out today, as you mentioned, are referred to tutoring. We've got a pending communication as it relates to all of our enrollment management services. So using financial aid, using admissions, using the office of the registrar, being able to add and drop classes without using a physical document. That's all pending. I believe that we have a communication on my desk about how academic advising will work. And there's one I think I just distributed as it relates to the library. So we're working through all the major services in academic affairs, making sure that we don't have to drop the ball in any place. And after we get through those majors, we're going to come back and do fine-tooth communications to make sure that for those smaller units that they're also being addressed as well.
A lot of those services are provided by student aides, and we're notified that student aides weren't going to be used anymore after the 5th of April. What about those student aides that can still work from home and still provide a service for other students? And even some of them, the ones that operate on separate budgets from the CSU system.
Well, certainly our tutors would be an example of student workers that we need desperately during this particular time. In fact, I've reached out to our tutoring coordinator to see if we could bring more student tutors aboard. So I think that's an employment opportunity for many students.
Okay. I think that was about all I had. Katrina, Paige, do you guys have anything else before we? Earlier we mentioned the you mentioned financial aid as far as emergency services go. Was there been any talk about any kind of? I know there's been a lot of talk about stimulus packages to help out many people in the community, the nation, across the nation. Has there been any kind of financial stimulus ideas tossed around to help students going through this?
I mean, I'm aware of those as well from the President of the United States, but we haven't received any guidance from the Department of Education at this point.
I will say on behalf of University Advancement, they are working to try to solicit emergency funding for humanitarian reasons with our students. And so right now I know they are working with our alumni. And as soon as we have information on that and opportunities for students, we'll be communicating that out. I will say that we are going to continue our runner walk and talk. It'll be done in a different way. So that'll be another opportunity for you to connect with us. And that will be happening next week. Michael, clarify that time for me.
It's 10:30 on Thursday.
10:30 on Thursday, and that is March 26th? 26th. March 26th at 10:30. So it'll be a virtual runner walk and talk. So, and don't forget that we are trying to give daily updates because things are changing. We're getting directives from the chancellor's office, who I think is making decisions in a very compassionate way towards students, faculty, and staff. And we want to keep you updated on those immediately. But we really can say we really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you face to face, even though it's virtual. It gives us a lift in spirit just to see your faces. And also, I hope that you can tell that we're working around the clock to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our campus community. And I really want to say across the system, I think CSUB is really showing great leadership and modeling of best practices at this time. So, and that includes the work from the runners. So I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I believe that's about all we have for today. Is anything else? One more time. Katrina, Paige, you guys okay? Good? Okay.
Katrina, Paige, thank you. Samuel, you're amazing.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you again. Talk with you again soon.
Yes, we will.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.